After my son died, my daughter-in-law pressured me out of my own house in Phoenix, calling me dead weight until I found something in the attic. They say family is supposed to take you in when the world pushes you out, but some families will be the ones who push first. I'm Mabel, born in 1950 in Flagstaff, Arizona. Back in 2017, when my only son James passed in a motorcycle accident, his wife Tina turned on me like a switchblade. I felt gutted, like the world went dark twice, but then something happened. Today, at 75, I'm finally sharing this, because someone out there needs to hear it before it's too late. If you're listening, drop your city below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this story hits home. James was the only child I ever had. I raised him alone after his father died in a factory accident back in '81. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to put food on the table in our little brick house off Camelback Road in Phoenix. He met Tina in college. She was charming, at first. She brought me flowers and always called me Mama Mabel in that sweet syrupy voice. But after the wedding, things changed. Slowly. Subtly. Like heat rising in the Arizona sun, you don't feel the burn until it's too late. When James died, I was still living in the house. He left no will. I assumed, foolishly, that I'd stay with Tina and the kids. We were family, right? Wrong. 3 weeks after the funeral, she called a family meeting in the living room. Mabel, she started, folding her arms, I know you're grieving. We all are. But, this house, it's too much now. I can't afford the upkeep with just my salary, and frankly, I think it's time you consider other options. I blinked. Other options? She sighed, like I was a toddler refusing nap time. There's a lovely senior community up in Tempe. They offer activities and, are you kicking me out? I asked, my voice cracking. No one's kicking anyone out, she said, smiling that tight-lipped smile. We're just helping you transition. She wanted me gone. I slept in my room that night with the door locked, tears soaking my pillow. That was the room James painted for me after my hip surgery. He used lilac, my favorite color. I sat there, staring at the fading paint, wondering how everything had gone so cold. The next day, she handed me a flyer. Desert Arms Retirement, it said, with pictures of smiling old folks tossing bean bags. You'd be happy here, she said, already dialing numbers. They even offer shuttle service. I didn't speak. I just nodded. But inside, something broke. I stayed quiet. For weeks. I watched her. I watched how she treated the children, my grandchildren, with sharp tones and hurried kisses. I saw how quickly she listed James's tools for sale, even before his clothes were cleared out. And how she suddenly had a new man visiting late nights, always leaving before dawn. I wasn't blind, just tired. I knew I couldn't stay much longer, but I needed to know what they were hiding. Something wasn't adding up. James had talked to me about life insurance before his accident. He said he'd taken out a policy. A big one. Enough to take care of the kids. Enough for Tina and me to stay safe. But now Tina was acting broke, selling furniture, skimming groceries. So where had the money gone? One night, when she and the kids were out at a movie, I climbed into the attic. James used to keep all his old paperwork there, in a dusty corner next to a broken-down sewing table. It was hotter than sin up there, but I didn't care. I pulled open boxes, wiped away cobwebs, and kept looking. That's when I saw it, an old cedar chest tucked behind insulation rolls. It took everything in me to drag it out. I coughed through the dust, pried it open, and froze. Inside were envelopes. Dozens. each labeled Policy Copies James R. Bank statements, legal papers, certified letters from a company in New Mexico, and a death benefit statement. The life insurance was real. And it had paid out $312,000. And she'd never said a word. I sat on the attic floor, my hand on my chest, my legs shaking. She lied. I was grieving my son while she was spending his death money. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed, rehearsing everything I'd seen. Every paper, every signature, every bank deposit. And I realized this wasn't just about money. This was about erasing me. Erasing James. Getting me out of the way so she could live her new life in our home, with our memories, with his money. I had to leave, but not quietly. The next morning, I packed just one suitcase. I didn't say goodbye. I left the cedar box exactly where it was, but took photos every document, every letter. I tucked them safely into my purse. Then I walked out that door with my chin high. I called an old friend, Marjorie, who lived out near Apache Junction. She'd lost her husband too, and welcomed me in like a sister. I stayed with her for a while, letting the dust settle. Watching from afar. Tina posted on Facebook like nothing happened. Her new boyfriend moved in within weeks. But what she didn't know was I wasn't done. I wasn't just a grieving widow. I was a mother. I was a fighter. And now I had proof. She took everything from me. Now I was going to take something from her. What I discovered hidden in that old cedar box changed everything. And suddenly I wasn't just a burden, I was a threat. Marjorie had one of those old desert homes, tiny, but warm with love. Her place smelled like rose lotion and fried green tomatoes, and her kitchen was always humming with gospel music. The moment I arrived, she looked at my face and said, "Baby, you didn't come here just to visit, did you?" I broke down right there at her front door. She wrapped me up in her arms like I was still 20 and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Tina, the eviction disguised as a transition, the missing insurance money, and most importantly, that cedar box in the attic. When I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos of the documents, her eyes widened. "That girl's been robbing the dead," she whispered. "And you've got the receipt." I nodded slowly. "She thinks I'm just some old woman with a bad hip. But I know what she did." "You gonna go to the police?" I hesitated. "Not yet. I want to see what else she's hiding." That's when Marjorie said something that changed everything. "Did you ever check under the floorboards in the attic?" I looked at her confused. "James and my boy were thick as thieves back in high school," she explained. "They used to hide everything in the attic, comic books, snacks, even cash. James always said no one looks under the boards." The next day, while Tina was out, I made up an excuse and went back to the house. I told her I needed to pick up some old photo albums I'd forgotten in the crawl space. She was reluctant at first, but eventually agreed. "Fine. Just be quick. And don't touch anything else." The kids weren't home. The house was silent. My house still smelled faintly of James's cologne under the layers of her perfume and dollar store candles. I climbed the attic steps again. Every creak felt like a betrayal, like I was breaking into my own past. This time I knew where to look. Near the cedar box, I ran my hand along the plywood floor, tapping for hollows. After about 20 minutes, I heard it, a different thud. Soft. Hollow. With my fingers trembling, I pried up a board. Beneath it was a small, metal lockbox. No dust. No cobwebs. It hadn't been there long. I opened it. Inside were 3 things. A bank ledger with recent deposits, large ones. A burner phone with texts from someone labeled JD. A notarized form for power of attorney signed by James. But it didn't look right. His signature was shaky, not like the neat one I'd seen all my life. My heart dropped. She forged it. That meant she'd had legal access to his accounts and likely used that false authority to claim the insurance. I took more photos. Every page, every text message, every number. Then I placed everything back exactly where it was, lowered the board gently, and left the attic without a trace. By the time I reached Marjorie's, my hands were stiff with anger. She's not just greedy, I said. She's a criminal. Marjorie poured sweet tea and sat across from me. What do you want to do, Mabel? I stared at the table for a long while. I want her to feel what I felt. Alone. Powerless. Ashamed. I called an old acquaintance Russell. He was James's godfather and a retired paralegal. I told him everything. At first, he was hesitant. Are you sure the documents are real? He asked. Real enough for a judge to get curious, I replied. Russell helped me draft a private petition. I wasn't going to sue her outright, not yet. I wanted to send a subtle legal request through the state asking for clarification on the power of attorney and death benefit disbursement. It was enough to rattle her. A week later, Tina called me furious. What the hell is this? She barked. You're trying to ruin me. I kept my voice calm. I'm just asking questions. Don't you want to clear things up, dear? You need to back off, old woman, before you regret it. And just like that, she hung up. That night, the burner phone I took photos of, I called the number that kept texting her under the name JD. A man picked up. Young. Nervous. Hello. I didn't speak. He said, Tina? This isn't funny. You said the old lady was gone. This isn't part of the plan. My blood ran cold. Part of the plan? I hung up. Tina didn't just want me out, she was afraid of me. She knew that if I stayed, I'd uncover what she buried. And now she was scared. I went to sleep that night in Marjorie's guest room, watching the desert stars blink over the horizon. The wind was howling outside like it always does in Phoenix, like the desert doesn't forget. And neither would I. The next morning, Marjorie handed me a folded napkin. On it, in her loopy handwriting, was a single line. Don't raise your voice. Raise your case. I smiled. It was time to raise hell the quiet way. While pretending to help me, they tried to manipulate me, but I stayed quiet, planning something they'd never see coming. The letter from the state attorney's office landed in Tina's mailbox on a Tuesday morning. I didn't have to be there to see her face. Russell had worded it just right, formal, vague, and heavy enough to set off alarms. A preliminary inquiry into the execution of financial documents following James's death. Tina must have panicked. That evening, I got a call. Her voice was syrupy, sweet, too sweet. Mama Mabel, she said. I just wanted to check in. See how you're doing. I leaned back in Marjorie's rocking chair, watching her dog chase lizards on the porch. I'm just fine, Tina. Enjoying the quiet. Oh, I bet you miss the kids, she added, testing the waters. I miss James. There was silence. Then came the real reason for her call. Listen, I think we got off on the wrong foot, she said. Why don't you come back for dinner this weekend? The kids would love to see you. And I want us to clear the air. It was bait, wrapped in fake warmth. I could practically hear her nails tapping the countertop. I agreed. Sure, I'll come, I said, casually. Would love a home-cooked meal. When I showed up on Saturday, she had candles lit, a roast in the oven, and a fake smile stapled across her face. Her new boyfriend Jacob was nowhere in sight. Smart move. She probably didn't want me connecting the dots just yet. The kids ran to me, hugging me tightly. My heart ached. I hadn't seen them in weeks. During dinner, Tina played hostess. "Can I get you more potatoes?" she asked. "No, thank you." She kept glancing toward the hallway, like she was expecting someone or something. After dessert, she leaned in, lowering her voice. "I want to be honest with you, Mabel," she began. "The state letter really threw me. I didn't realize you were still dealing with legal stuff. But I understand. Grief makes us do strange things." I sipped my tea slowly. "It sure does. I mean, those documents, they're so old. And James and we shared everything. I thought I was helping when I filed the insurance claim. We needed the money, you know that." She was trying to paint herself as the victim. I nodded. "That's fair. But just one thing, why'd you hide the documents in a lockbox under the attic floor?" Her face went pale. What lockbox?" I stood, gently placing my napkin on the table. "Tina, don't insult me." She followed me to the door, grabbing my arm. "Mabel, please. Don't go to the police. Let's talk. You should have thought about that before forging his signature." Her fingers dug into my arm. I pulled free. Outside, I took a deep breath of the desert air. The stars blinked overhead like little truths waiting to be uncovered. Back at Marjorie's, I showed Russell the photos again. He was already preparing the next step, a formal legal complaint, requesting a forensic review of the power of attorney and insurance filings. It would go through probate court, where forged signatures are exposed like lies under a microscope. But before we filed it, something unexpected happened. The next morning, I got a call from Jacob, the new man. His voice was nervous. "I didn't know about the insurance until 2 weeks ago," he said. "I swear. But I saw Tina practicing James's signature. I didn't say anything then, but I can't be part of this." I stayed silent. "I'll testify if needed," he said. "Just don't drag me down with her." I thanked him, took his statement in writing, and passed it to Russell. We now had photos of the original forged power of attorney, the burner phone records, testimony from Jacob, bank documents showing transfers. Tina had built her life on lies, but the cracks were showing. A week later, Tina showed up at Marjorie's house. In person. Marjorie met her at the door. "She doesn't want to see you." "I just need 2 minutes," Tina begged. Against my better judgment, I came to the porch. She looked terrible, hair unbrushed, circles under her eyes, hands shaking. "I'm sorry," she blurted out, tears brimming. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was drowning. James didn't tell me how bad things were. And then he was gone. I panicked. I said nothing." She sniffled. "I thought if I used the money right, it would be okay. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I replied calmly. "You made me feel like trash. Like I didn't belong in my own son's house. I was scared you'd fight me," she said. "That you'd try to take the kids." "I never wanted to take anyone," I whispered. "Just the truth." We stared at each other in the thick Arizona heat. "I'll give you the house," she said suddenly. "I'll sign it over. Just don't take this to court." But I had already decided this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about James's name. About what was right. "You can't buy silence with a deed," I said. "Some lessons can't be skipped." I turned and went back inside. Tina stood on that porch for a long time before walking away. Russell filed the complaint the next morning. The investigation would take weeks, but the outcome was already unraveling. She wore a mask of sorrow, of responsibility, of innocence. But masks melt under pressure, and I was done pretending. With the truth on my side, I returned to confront them, and each lie they told began to unravel in front of everyone. The first court summons landed in Tina's mailbox on a Monday morning. Probate Court of Maricopa County. Petition to investigate fraudulent execution of financial documents and misappropriation of insurance benefits. She didn't call me this time. No more pretending. She knew she'd pushed her luck too far. Meanwhile, I returned to Phoenix not as the grieving old woman they tried to shuffle away, but as a woman with a purpose. Marjorie helped me pack my things, and Russell met me at his firm to prepare for the hearings. "You ready for this?" he asked, looking me dead in the eye. "I buried my son," I said. "I'm ready for anything now." The first hearing was held in a small courtroom, no bigger than a school classroom. The benches were old, the fluorescent lights buzzing softly. Tina arrived wearing a beige pantsuit, hair slicked back, face pale but trying to look composed. Jacob wasn't with her. But I had someone in my corner, James's childhood friend, Mark, who had also been listed as an emergency contact in several of James's old documents. He offered to testify about the insurance conversations James had with him, and the fact that James had made it clear the money was to be shared between Tina and me. The judge was a tall woman with stern eyes and a sharp tongue. She listened patiently as Russell laid out our evidence, photos of the documents, a copy of the life insurance payout ledger, the questionable power of attorney, and, most importantly, a handwriting expert's report confirming James's signature on that POA was not genuine. Tina tried to spin her story. I was grieving. I didn't know how to handle all the paperwork. I didn't mean to forge anything. I thought he'd told me it was okay to sign. But the judge wasn't buying it. "You either signed on his behalf under legal authority," the judge said, "or you forged a document to access over $300,000 in death benefits. Which is it, Mrs. Reynolds?" Tina fumbled, stammering, "It wasn't malicious. I thought I was the only one who could handle things." "And why didn't you disclose the funds to Ms. Hollis?" the judge asked, referring to me. "She lived in that house, helped raise the children, and was listed as next of kin on other documents." "I didn't think she wanted to be involved," Tina whispered. The courtroom went quiet. Then my voice broke the silence. "She called me a burden," I said from the witness stand. 3 weeks after my son died, she handed me a brochure for a nursing home and told me to transition out of the home James and I shared. And when I found the documents, she threatened me to stay quiet. There was a sharp inhale from the back of the courtroom. Tina didn't look up. The judge ordered a temporary freeze on all accounts linked to James's estate and scheduled a second hearing for full forensic review. But the message was clear. The court was taking this seriously. Outside the courtroom, as I walked down the steps, people stared. Neighbors, old friends, even a few local reporters who'd caught wind of the story. One woman approached me and said, "You're the mother, right? The one who got kicked out." I nodded. She squeezed my hand. "You're braver than I could ever be." I didn't say anything, just smiled faintly and walked on. By the time the second hearing came around, Tina's composure had completely cracked. The forensic accountant confirmed what I already knew. Tina had funneled over $270,000 of the payout into a private account under her maiden name. The rest had been used to pay off personal debts, make house renovations, and ironically cover the retainer of a divorce attorney she'd hired behind James's back just months before he died. When asked why she didn't report the funds or share them according to the verbal agreements James had made, she broke down. I wanted a new life, she sobbed in the courtroom. I wanted to be free. And I knew Mabel would never leave if she had a say. There it was. The truth. Finally spoken. It wasn't about grief. It wasn't about mistakes. It was about control. It was about erasing me to rewrite her future. The judge didn't hold back. You manipulated an elderly widow, forged legal documents, and intentionally concealed large sums of money meant to benefit a grieving family. This court finds your actions not only fraudulent, but morally reprehensible. Tina lost control of the estate. The judge ordered her to pay restitution and froze the house under probate review. But the best part? The kids were temporarily placed under the care of Tina's sister during the review, and the court granted me visitation rights, supervised at first. The court wanted the children to have time with their grandmother, especially after the trauma of losing their father and the hidden truths being exposed. When I saw them again, they ran to me like nothing had changed. "Grandma," they yelled, clinging to me, giggling, unaware of the storm the adults had been through. And I knew, in that moment, I hadn't just won a legal case. I had reclaimed my place in their lives. Later, Jacob sent me a letter. A real, handwritten letter. I didn't know what Tina was truly capable of, he wrote. "Thank you for protecting those kids. If there's anything I can do, I owe you." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. His guilt was his own to carry. Back in Marjorie's house, I sat on the porch and watched the sunset melt into the red clay of the Arizona desert. "You think she'll recover from this?" Marjorie asked, sipping her iced tea. "I don't know," I said. "But I know this desert don't forget." Marjorie nodded. "Neither do you." And she was right. Because Tina tried to erase me. But I left my footprints deep. And the wind may scatter the dust, but it can't erase the trail. Not when a mother walks it with truth on her back. In court, and in front of the entire neighborhood, I made them kneel for what they'd done, then I gave them one final surprise. The final hearing was public. People whispered as I entered, their heads turning like leaves in the wind. Some recognized me from James's funeral, others from the neighborhood. They came not just for justice, but for the story. A woman pushed out of her home. A forged signature. A grieving mother turned silent warrior. Tina sat on the other side of the courtroom, looking like a shadow of her former self. Gone was the polished look, the stiff posture. Her hair was pulled back in a bun that looked like it hadn't been brushed in days. She didn't meet my eyes. Couldn't. The judge began. "Today's hearing will address final restitution, the matter of the estate, and residential ownership." Russell stood with a calm authority that only age and truth can sharpen. "Your Honor," he said, "we are not here to bury Tina Reynolds. We're here to bury the lies. We're here to honor James Hollis, his wishes, his mother, and the children he left behind." He laid out everything again. The forged power of attorney, the hidden insurance payouts, the private accounts under her maiden name. The documented intent from James's conversations with multiple witnesses that the funds were to benefit both his children and his mother. When it was my turn to speak, I rose slowly. "I am not bitter," I said, voice clear. "But I was buried alive in my own grief. My son was taken from me. My home was taken from me. My dignity stripped. And all I did was ask questions. Questions that uncovered truths she hoped would stay hidden." Tina didn't even flinch. "But I didn't come here to destroy her," I continued. "I came here to reclaim what is mine, my name, my home, my peace." The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Hollis, what is it you are seeking today?" I looked around. Not just at Tina, but at the faces watching me. The children of neighbors who knew me when I was the woman who baked pies and handed out butterscotch candies. The same people who turned their heads when Tina told them I chose to leave. I want the house back, I said. My name on the deed. Not as revenge, but restoration. The judge nodded. And the funds, she asked. Tina can keep what's left of the insurance. I don't want her children to suffer. But I want a full public acknowledgement of what she did. I want it in writing. I want it filed with the county clerk. I want it known. The courtroom fell silent. The judge ruled. The house was officially returned to me title and deed. Tina was ordered to vacate within 30 days. The forged power of attorney was nullified. She was fined, and the document placed in her permanent record, disqualifying her from holding legal responsibility over any other estate or dependent for 10 years. As for the remaining insurance money less than $30,000 by that point she was allowed to keep it, but with an asterisk, under court supervision for the benefit of the children only. But the most powerful moment came after the gavel fell. I stood up and turned toward Tina. She looked at me finally. Red eyes. Empty hands. I forgive you, I said quietly. But that doesn't mean I'll forget. She didn't say a word. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. It was a different kind of weeping, a silent admission. Outside the courthouse, reporters rushed up. Mrs. Hollis, do you feel like you got justice? I stopped. I didn't come for revenge, I said. I came for my son. For his children. For my truth. That's all. Then I walked past them, back toward the truck Russell had driven us in, where Marjorie was already waving from the passenger seat with a grin. You looked like Queen Arizona in there, she chuckled as I climbed in. Not a queen, I said. Just a mother who didn't lay down. Over the next few weeks, Tina moved out. The neighborhood watched as a U-Haul parked in front of the house she once called hers. Some avoided her. Some whispered. But no one defended her. I moved back in quietly. James's room was still full of dust and echoes. But it was mine again. I cleaned the walls, repainted the lilac room he made for me, and planted marigolds outside the window. James loved marigolds. The grandkids visited every weekend now. We made pancakes, read old picture books, and watched cartoons late into the night. They never asked about the court case. They just said, "Grandma's back." And that was enough for me. One evening, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. I didn't know how much I was hurting people until the truth was dragged into daylight. I'm sorry. For everything. T. I placed the letter in a drawer. Not because I needed it, but because sometimes, even snakes shed their skin. Months later, I was invited to speak at a local women's center. They wanted me to tell my story, not the legal parts, but the heart of it. About losing, rising, and reclaiming what matters. I stood on that little stage with my hands clasped. Don't let people decide your expiration date, I told them. Being old doesn't make you invisible. It makes you powerful. Because when you survive long enough, you learn the one truth they never expect. You know how to fight without ever raising your voice. They stood, clapped, cried, and when I walked off that stage, I felt something I hadn't felt since James died. Whole. The moral of my story? Sometimes silence is strength, and survival is the sweetest form of revenge. Never let anyone write your ending while you're still breathing. If this touched you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs it, and comment your biggest lesson.